Hello, welcome to the Heller Approach Acting Studio. I'm Brad Heller. Today we're going to be talking about a very important acting tip. I've had numerous students who have asked me the question, when I'm in a scene, what am I supposed to do when people tell me that I have to let go or I have to just be in the scene? Well, I think we really have to look at what that means, because I was told that too. And when I was told just to let go or just to be, they never really explained what that meant. Like, what am I supposed to be thinking? Where do I put my brain? I mean, I can't just be and not have anything in my head, because then I'll start thinking about how I have nothing in my head. So what should we actually focus on when we're letting go or just being in a scene? Well, we have to look at what human behavior is. And in my opinion, when I am just being myself and I'm talking to somebody, what am I really doing? I'm taking them in and I'm receiving them, and they are causing me to react. And then they play off of me and they react. And then I play off of them and I react. So it's actually kind of similar to playing tennis in a way. We got to make sure, though, that when we're in the scene and we are reacting, we got to make sure we're reacting not only when the other person is talking. Here's a really important thing. We got to make sure we're reacting even when we're talking. Because if you really think about it, as I'm talking right now, it's the camera, it's you that's inducing me to speak. And a lot of actors, what they do is when they may think that they just have to react when the other person is talking, and then when it becomes their turn to talk, they in a sense perform their lines back. They do them. And that's a big problem. Because when we're performing them, what we're doing is we're sort of making a moment the way we think it should be. And that's not what we do in real life. In real life, we just react. I mean, I didn't plan on doing this with my hands. I didn't plan on saying what I'm saying, these exact words to you. Nor am I thinking about every word that I say to you and how it should be said, because then I would be a robot and I would look really stupid. So when we're in a scene, letting go or being means reacting. Now, it can get a little hairy, because when we start reacting to our scene partner, we can start watching to make sure that we're reacting. And it can become this sort of paradox and we go crazy. So when that happens, because it will, you immediately need to kind of take that little urge that's saying, hey, are you really receiving? And put it back into your head and start receiving again. So look, we're going to have extraneous thoughts, but where do we go back to? And then, of course, if we, for some reason, lose our focus in the scene and we have no idea where we were, we always have the objective to come back to, the actual words of the objective. But we don't think the words of the objective when we're executing the scene unless it's absolutely necessary. I just want to come back to my analogy of tennis. In tennis, we have the preparing part. When we build our stroke, for example. For example, let's say a forehand. I remember my coach used to say, okay, turn your shoulders and bend your knees and hit the ball. So when I was learning that stroke, I would have to do that and think about turning my shoulders, bending my knees, and hitting the ball. And then he would throw a ball and I would do it. And I would do it for like 1,000 times. Why do I have to do it so many times? So that when I'm competing, of course, I don't have to think about turning my shoulders. I just hit the ball. That's the way it is with acting. Now, not only should I be just hitting the ball, but I also got to do that when the other person is playing too. So when I'm looking at my opponent, it's kind of like acting, isn't it? Because the opponent is the one that's inducing me to move where I move in the court. If you want to take it a step further, it's actually the ball that is inducing me to go where I go. So the ball causes me to move the same way my scene partner causes me to do what I do. So if we can just take that experience and transfer it over to acting, the ability to receive your scene partner like a tennis ball, then it kind of starts to make sense. There's no shift in the experience of tennis, whether you're hitting the ball or whether you're watching your opponent. It doesn't feel different. It still has that same vibe of reacting, even when I'm hitting the ball. So when I'm acting with my scene partner, I'm just simply reacting all the time. I hope that clears up this particular issue. We have been doing some great things with the YouTube channel. We are getting new subscribers nearly hourly. And it's just been an incredible experience to watch. It's really showing me that people have a real interest in this technique, which is just fantastic. So one of the cool things about the subscribers is some of them have been writing comments and questions. So I thought, when we were doing these videos, I could address a question or two in the videos. So here's a question from one person. His name is Atif Khan. Atif, thank you for watching. And his question says, I have a serious question, please. If you just have to make it look real by just letting it be, how can we make a scene interesting and entertaining? I think it's a great question. I think we have to really look at what entertainment is. Entertaining can also just be watching somebody be believable. It's, in a scene, given the circumstances that you're in, if you're playing it believably, many times that can be fascinating because, break it down, you're doing a scene. It's not really happening. So if you're just reacting as real people would in a scene, in a believable way, that can be fascinating to watch. Now, sometimes it's not everything though. There are some actors that we love to watch. Why is that? Well, sometimes they have a spark. They have this kind of cool little different thing that they do with moments. If you look at Anthony Hopkins, when he sort of turns to you, he's like, hello, Clarice. In his intensity, he takes the beat before he says hello, or the way he sort of says Clarice, and he kind of, those are all kind of cool little gems that Anthony Hopkins put into his role. And that's built on top of the believability. Believability is first and foremost the most important thing. But after we deal with the believability, then we can just add a little icing on our cake. And that's what those moments are. So I think about believability and honesty as if I was baking a cake. That's the cake. And all these little cool little moments you can come up with, that's the icing. Now, we get in trouble when we start thinking about just making moments. Problem with that is it's kind of like eating a bowl of icing with no cake. So when you're practicing your scenes, make sure you focus and tune in on honesty and truth first. And then after you have a vibe of the scene, then you can go ahead and start thinking about some of the cool things you might do that come out of the honesty of the moment and truth when you're acting the scene. There are principles, very specific principles that abide by, for example, if you look at a mystery, frequently in a good mystery, you'll notice that they take these long silences, these long pauses where nobody's talking, and you as a viewer can get very uncomfortable. And of course, that's totally intentional. That's what they want with a good mystery. If you look at comedy, there are principles why people laugh. People will laugh when somebody is funny to look at. People will laugh when you're in pain. So if I'm working on a movie, I recently did a movie with Billy Gardell, guy who plays Mike in Mike and Molly. And he was a great guy to work with. And I remember specifically when we were working on the scene, the first thing I needed to do was tune in on honesty and truth and making sure that my character was real. But after we did that, then I had to start thinking about the comedic principles because the movie is a farce. And I had to think, okay, when I'm playing this scene, I got to be aware I might need to be in pain. Or maybe I got to be funny to look at on top of the truth, not at the expense of truth, but on top of it. So when I would play the scene, I may have an impulse, and find myself perhaps being in a little bit more pain out of the truth of the moment because in the back of my head, I know it's a farce. So those moments, again, that's sort of the icing on the cake. So if you're a newer actor, you don't even need to worry about that stuff right now. For you, the most important thing for you to worry about is duplicating reality and being a real human being. I hope that these tips have been helpful to you. Again, I so appreciate the support. We will be having more videos coming out soon. Again, my name is Brad Heller, here at the Heller Approach Acting Studio. Keep acting.